Is that a handout?
Oh yeah, no one's sitting there.
I thought like I'm open handouts.
Okay,
I don't say that that much.
My boots are overkill. Like I was walking.
these are some photos.
It was blowing.
Yeah, it was blowing, but I'm like,
If you want to see them on your phone, there's a QR code for it too.
Yeah. Oh, I think it's supposed to happen.
yeah.
One of those little.
Yo,
please don't, because that's what's gonna happen.
I'm like, see Tom's feeling slow.
At least you're not.
Tom's, how dare you say Tom's?
Weather daddy, sometimes he is off though.
Well, every weatherman is full of shit.
His age is showing a little bit these days.
It was supposed to rain last snow in Chicago.
Yeah, so I was expecting to wake up to.
Me too.
And I'm like, I'm gonna open up the windows.
I didn't see all that
Chicago's
snow.
Lost
I know.
Dime Museum,
It's all wet
low-cost
outside.
oddity museums. Damn, I
Well,
would totally go to that if I
I just
wasn't
read
already
this
going on a
morning.
fishing trip.
Yeah, what? I thought it was gonna be all
Hate
ice.
that just the
All
way
that
I'm
rain
in.
yesterday, I thought it was gonna
Oh,
freeze.
yeah.
And I don't think
Oh,
I
no,
think it was like
because
30
the
degrees.
temperature was
This is
still
so
kind of
cool.
up.
It was up yesterday, you're right,
Yeah.
until late, but
Right.
the rain
Like a real
dissipated
door.
before it froze.
I know, I
So,
saw
Right,
it.
happy,
right.
happy,
But
happy.
I totally expected snow, that's what my phone said.
When I was younger, I was
In
like,
quotes,
fine.
right?
And then when you get past the 7 days,
No,
it's
right,
like,
and
oh,
it's,
now I have like, I'm in pain.
yeah,
It's
every
so
injury,
pretty, if you don't have to drive
that's
in
the
it,
one.
But like you're on.
and you don't have to shovel it, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah,
I go
and
back
I
home,
don't
I'm like,
anymore.
did I crash or something?
What?
I feel like I live in a great medium of I don't have a car and I don't drive, and I live in an apartment building where they actually shovel the sidewalk, so I just get to sit at home and admire it for the most part. Yeah,
I know, that's how I
I feel like,
feel.
oh, it's great, it's pretty, staying inside.
I
Eventually, the
know,
sidewalks
I
get shoveled.
texted both
For
my
some
daughters
reason,
and said that exact same thing.
uh,
Don't have to drive it, worry about going to work in it.
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Okay,
really?
Leyla, we're gonna start it.
Oh yes.
Trevor, turn you.
Stand awkwardly on this side.
It's my mom.
Hello, everyone.
Not to go anywhere.
Like they never have to shovel.
Turn this bad boy up a little bit. Hello everybody. How are we doing?
Awesome.
Thank you guys thank you. How many of you are there? Thank you, 11 of you that showed up in real life. We appreciate it. All of our events always occur, rain or shine or snow or heat. Pretty much the only ones we've ever canceled, it was the CTA wasn't running or it was going to be 40 degrees and raining, which is without a doubt the worst weather to give a tour in. So 40 degrees and raining we might cancel. Every other weather we do it. Snow's not bad. Right? Snow's not bad. Yeah, it's not that bad.
Chicago.
Yeah, and to those of you who wimped out and stayed at home, you're lost. No, I'm kidding. Thank you also for tuning in online, if you are online. For those of you that don't know me, do we have any first-timers here tonight? Oh, welcome, first-timers. We're a nice group.
Last timers? Any last timers?
Yeah, last-timers. Thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you if you're here in person or at home. If you are vaccinated, thank you. We are a history organization. We know vaccines work. That's why none of us have polio. So if you haven't gotten the shot yet, now's the time. Now's the time. Do it. And if you have, thank you for being here and thanks for letting us return to in-person events. It was a very difficult couple of years where we couldn't do anything in person, and it's, as a speaker, it's really fun to be able to look out and see people's faces nodding and smiling and laughing and sometimes falling asleep. It's a good gauge of your performance that you lose in a virtual presentation. It's even good to know when you're boring. So thank you again for being here. My name is Patty. I started Chicago for Chicagoans almost 6 years ago. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. Worked very hard for that letter from the IRS. All of your donations to our organization are tax deductible. We are all volunteer. We are run by myself and a team of board of directors who are also really hardworking, badass ladies. We are also a women-run organization exclusively, which is pretty cool. So thank you guys so much for being here. Our lecture series is taking place every single Thursday until about mid-April. So come learn some things with us. We're really excited to have you here. And I am incredibly excited to present your guest speaker tonight. not only is Leyla Royale one of my favorite people on planet Earth, she is also sits on our board of directors where she does lots of things, including helping us create strategic plans for our organization. She helps us with marketing. She helps plan our fundraisers when we can do that again. And it's really, truly amazing to be able to work with your friends and to have them come give amazing lectures for you. So I think you guys are going to like this one. There's not a lot of people qualified to talk on the topic of horrible history of bridge safety. Pretty much you'd have to be a bridge expert or a disasters nerd. And I'm going to go ahead and say Leyla is probably one of the darkest historians I know. She does disaster tours. She does tales of death and demise. She's ran a blog for many years, which is still online, deadinchicago.com. So no one is more uniquely suited to tell you all about the horrible ways you could have died on a drawbridge before this exact moment in history. So give it up for Leyla, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Oh, Patty's on my way already. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm going to try and stay close to the mic here. It's a little bit taller than I usually sit. Thank you for that introduction, Patty. As she mentioned, my name is Leyla Royale. Hi, everyone. Thank you, everyone who is here in person. I think we have like 11 people here, which we are betting how many people were actually going to show up in person, and I did say 11, so yes. Excellent. And I love that like half of the 11 are people who've never been here before, so this is even better. So a little bit of background on me. Patty gave some background. I've been a tour guide here in Chicago for over a decade, which is pretty cool. I got my start working at the Chicago Theater in 2011, doing tours there. I started doing tours there because I had been working there as an usher, and I got really into the history, and then they had a tour guide opening, and I like arrived at the interview with my history books and was like, it's really cool, and I have this information, and they're like, this is way too much. Great, you're hired. So I started doing tours there. I've run them independently with Chicago for Chicagoans, for Atlas Obscura. Lately I've been doing a lot of online streaming stuff with not only Chicago for Chicagoans here, but with Effing Chicago, which is a collective that Patty is also a part of tour guides behaving badly. And behaving badly meaning that we talk about whatever we want related to history, as long as it's accurate. We don't have to wear khakis and polos, as you can see I'm not wearing tonight. And it's also Effing Chicago, so if we want to swear, we'll swear. I'm not really going to do that tonight, though.
You can if you want to.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Honestly, like working at the Chicago Theater for 13 years or whatever, I got pretty used to not swearing while talking in front of groups of people, so it's kind of weird for me to do that. Now, Patty mentioned Dead in Chicago, which was a blog that I ran from 2014 to 2017, something like that, and it's all about like weird ways that Chicagoans have died in the city, and a lot of it is based on Chicago Tribune archives and just finding those weird stories that people have forgotten about from 1859, 1884, 1921, something like that. And that's kind of where I got the start for the talk that I'm going to give tonight on bridge safety in Chicago. Because when I was researching for that, looking at weird ways people die, I started to come across a few different stories of people being crushed to death by the bridges. And it's like, what do you mean someone was crushed to death by a bridge? Why would that happen? How would that happen? And so it's a topic that I've always kind of wanted to explore, and I'm happy to be here tonight because I finally get to actually give a talk on bridge safety and how unsafe the bridges were, and then kind of how we ran to that eventual conclusion to where you have the bridges today where they are, for the most part pretty safe. Accidents are pretty rare when they happen. Every once in a while, but every couple of decades they happen now, and back in the day it was every week or so. So, let's start way back in the beginning. First bridge in Chicago, 1834.
Woo!
Woo! It's a drawbridge. It was rickety. I don't have anything else to say on it. Next big issue we have with bridges comes in 1849. There were a bunch of floating bridges. There were 4 floating bridges over the river, and there was a big spring thaw. And that unfortunately caused the river to flood, lots of snow, lots of ice, lots of water, and all of those bridges were destroyed. So they had to rebuild all the bridges. Now, up until this point, the bridges in Chicago were built privately, so it's just whoever needs to get across the river is going to build their own bridge. And it's not until 1856, 1857 that the city decides to have actual municipally funded bridges. So literally and figuratively supporting the bridges in the city of Chicago. Wouldn't be a talk if I didn't have at least one kind of bad pun in there. Now, early bridges they had in the city, they were just drawbridges, they're floating bridges, they're nothing too complex. But by the time you get to the mid to late 1850s, Chicago realizes that they have to have something that's a little bit more suited to the city's needs, I guess you could say. Because Chicago is built on the idea that this is a place of commerce, right? You have a lot of ships coming in here to dock. So you have a lot of river traffic. And throughout all the 1800s, river traffic is king. That is the important thing. That is what the city and everyone is prioritizing in terms of bridges, instead of people getting from one side of the river to the other. So they have to think, okay, we need something that's more involved than a drawbridge that can allow people to cross, but also is great for boats that need to go up and down the river, which is pretty much constantly. So that's where you get to the predominant style of bridge in Chicago in the 1800s, which is a swing style bridge. I believe most of you have a pamphlet that you can look through with a bunch of photos on it. If you are watching this online, Google the old State Street Bridge in the Encyclopedia of Chicago, and you'll see what I mean, a swing bridge here. And the basic idea of a swing bridge, which is what they settled on, is you have a pillar in the middle of the water, of the river, kind of like this, and then you have a bridge on top of it that sits, and it connects both sides of the land, right? So people can go back and forth, they can cross, and then if a boat comes by, the bridge tender can swing the bridge open. And then you get 2 lanes of traffic for the bridges to go through. In theory, it is just like driving a car. You're going to pass on the right side of the bridge. In practice, boats pretty much just went wherever they could on either side of the bridge. So this is the main kind of bridge you have. Swing shut. Great, now people can cross again. How safe do you guys think these bridges were?
Not safe.
Not safe. Yeah, that's correct. What kind of safety mechanisms do you think they would have had for swing bridges back in the day?
A rope.
Nothing.
A locking mechanism, ideally.
A locking mechanism. I like that. Yeah, they did. They did have a locking mechanism so that the bridge could stay in place and it wouldn't drift. Occasionally, though, they would lose hold of it or something would happen and then the bridge would just kind of spin a little bit. But, it wasn't a huge issue. Yeah, they did have a locking mechanism. Someone yelled a rope. They did not have a rope when they started. They, in fact, had pretty much nothing when they started. So basically, this meant that if you were a Chicagoan trying to get from one side of the river to the other and you get on a bridge and then a boat comes and the boat needs to pass, the bridge is going to open. So you might end up catching a bridge, I think is what they called it, and then you're just kind of stuck on the bridge until the bridge tender closes it again, and then you can get off. Yeah, it's super cool, super safe, yeah. We can all see that there's no issues with that, right?
Never.
Yeah, pretty much immediately there were issues with the swing bridges here. The earliest example I can find of an accident on the swing bridge comes from 1859. And there was a woman named Esther O'Connor, and she was attempting to cross on the Clark Street Bridge. And as she went on it, it started to open for a boat, and she ended up kind of stuck between the bridge and the land. And she was crushed by railings. So basically, as these bridges move, the bridges had railings on them, but there are also some railings on the land, so you can get kind of crushed between them and stuck. So she unfortunately died from this. Most of these people in these stories do die from their accidents on the bridges here. Chicago Tribune at the time said that the accident conveys a fresh and terrible warning against the carelessness too frequently practiced at the bridges, where it is wonderful such results are not more frequent. No fault can be attached to the bridge tenders in this instance. Yeah. So the bridges aren't safe because, like, if it starts to move and you try to, like, hop on the land or hop on the bridge, whatever, you run the risk of, like, getting crushed by the railings. Oops. That same year, 1859, another major issue with these bridges. There were 3 men on a Monday night at 11 p.m. that were attempting to cross at the Kinsey Street Bridge. There are no lights. It is not street lights like we have today, so it is just pitch black there, and they assumed that the bridge must be closed, and unfortunately it was not. So they managed to fall in the river, and 2 of them drowned. Just don't see what's going on there. Yeah, the bridge tender claimed that the lights were lit and that he yelled at them. The surviving man said no. Still not great there. The coroner's jury said it was death by accident due to the lights at the bridge being insufficient to actually help anything. So there's some lights, but the lights are on the bridge. So if the bridge is open, you can't see anything. Yeah, so the bridges aren't safe if you try to cross and it's moving, and they're not safe if they're just not there and it's pitch black and you can't see anything, right? That same year, 1859, this feels like a year where they finally start to realize, like, oh crap, these are bad, this is not a good idea. There were a lot of different articles talking about how you see people, or that people in Chicago are smart enough that they should be able to figure out how to stop the loss of life by crushing or drowning that annually occurs at our city bridges. And this is also the first year that they tried to, like, put kind of a gate or a self-acting guard at the bridges. A lot of times you would have a lot of, like, inventors coming up to people in the city saying, hey, I have this thing, I know it's going to work, it's going to totally work for sure, let me try it at the bridge. So they started doing this in 1859. At least that's when they have people coming up and being like, hello, I can help, let me do something about this. Now, if you're at the bridge and you don't drown and you don't get crushed to death, you might still have an accident there. 1860, very short article, I'm just going to read the whole thing to you. We learned that a lad whose name we could not ascertain had his foot badly crushed at Clark Street Bridge yesterday by getting it caught in the draw while it was closing. We sometimes wonder accidents of this kind are not more frequent. It was, a young man named William Geller, and he had to have his foot amputated after that. So tried to cross, left with his life, but you know, still not great. So you try to cross the bridges, you might be crushed to death, you might lose a foot, and the bridge might just not be there, and you're gonna fall into the water and die, right? So not very good, not very safe. And this is all 1859 to 1860, and this is just like a little sample of what I found from that time period. I'm sure there's a lot more. That same year they talked about a woman who was quote unquote rolled between the railings at the Rush Street Bridge. So when the bridge was trying to close, she managed to get pushed kind of between the railings on shore and the railing on the bridge, which only left like a 4-inch gap, so like this wide. And she kind of was rolled through it on the other side, and I believe almost fell into the river, but people were able to hold on to her, so she didn't actually fall in and drown. So she was lucky that she survived, but you know, still a lot of injuries, and that's got to be painful to have to go through that. I feel like this is just a pit right now of everyone staring at me going, oh God.
Aren't you used
Somebody
to that?
tell a joke.
I tried to be funny in these talks. I thought this was going to be like funnier than it is. Yeah. I will be honest on that. And I even have cut down on a lot of my notes here. But yeah, like 1850s, 1860s, basically you have a lot of people who are getting injured at these bridges, and a lot of times it is, cause of death being determined as like the bridge is unsafe, you should do something about it. And that's kind of the theme that goes on over and over and over again every decade, 1850s, 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 1900s. I got a lot of sad stories here. I'm trying to kind of
We love it.
abridge
Keep going.
some of them.
Oh.
There's a laugh. Okay. All right, now I can make it more depressing again. Thanks. Yeah, 1860, again, you have that same idea. There was a man named Andrew Zeniger who fell from the Wells Street Bridge. He died. Coroner's jury returned a verdict saying that, quote, the deceased came to his death by falling from the bridge and being drowned owing to the insufficiency of the lights at the bridge. Will the authorities pay some attention to the matter before more lives are lost at this bridge, which has already caused the death of at least 6 persons within 3 years? So still, not enough lights at the bridges. You can't see what's going on. You don't know what's happening. Yeah. So this is what you're going to have to deal with as a Chicagoan, and you're trying to cross through the swing bridges that we have downtown. Now, the bridges themselves are also not super safe. Even if you're on them, they cause a lot of different kinds of problems here, like disregarding falling into the river and everything like that. The bridges themselves are usually put up pretty quickly. They're trying to deal with river traffic and with pedestrians. They would be open for an unknown amount of time. And they also really divided up in the river into these 2 narrow channels that boats could go through. And it just made that pylon in the middle that the bridges sat on more of a target. So frequently you would have boats in the river that would just kind of hit the middle pier that the bridge sat on, to the point where the boats themselves or the bridges would get wrecked beyond repair. And even if it isn't wrecking the bridges beyond repair, it's certainly weakening them. Not to mention Chicago itself at this point in time is growing just enormously. The population of the city doubled every decade for 30 or 40 years around this time. So you have these bridges that are put up and they're very quickly out of use. They cannot handle the amount of weight that's being put on them. Of course, the city didn't really do anything about that. They just kind of dealt with them until they had to tear them down. And that leads you to issues where, in the 1850s, there was a ship called the London that ran into the middle pier of the Clark Street Bridge, totally demolished that bridge. They had to rebuild it. There is the Wells Street Bridge that in 1862 they were complaining about how unsafe the Wells Street Bridge was, so they finally decided to actually dismantle it and rebuild the bridge, and in the middle of dismantling it, you had workmen fall through the planks on the bridge that broke into the water. So they're really kind of wearing these things out way past the point where it would be safe to be on them. Now, in terms of safety in the 1850s, 1860s, probably the biggest thing that the bridges had were just railings on the bridges themselves. So you wouldn't go over the sides. You're still, of course, going to go over the vertical, the long way side, but not the horizontal way side, short way side. But even these railings weren't super supportive. There was actually a suit that was brought against the city in 1866 because there was a man who was sitting on the railing and the railing broke, and then he fell into the river and he drowned. And they tried to say that it's due to the city and criminal negligence for not keeping the railings maintained on the bridge, and the city tried to say, well, the railings are fine, but they're not meant to be sat on, so because he sat on the railings, it's his fault that it broke, and that seems like really poor planning. People are going to do dumb things, and they're going to sit on the railings, right?
Did they prevail?
I'm not actually sure what happened with that case. I need to look that up further. Who knows, though, knowing the city. Could be either way, really. Still pending, yes. Thank you. Yes.
That was choice.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised for the city here. Now, probably one of the biggest and weirdest accidents that happened with the bridge itself, kind of related to bridge safety, actually happened with the Rush Street Bridge in 1863, and this is one of my favorite stories. The bridge was closed, normal street traffic going across, and there was a farmer with a herd of cattle that was in the middle of crossing. And as he was crossing on the bridge, there was a boat that came along, needed to pass, so the bridge tender opened the bridge. So, it's the farmer, all of the cattle, and whoever else is just on the bridge. And you all know where this is going, right? Because you have a swing bridge like this, it's basically like a giant teeter-totter. So there were ordinances in place about when boats should or should not use their whistles, but no one really followed it. So some boat made a bunch of noise, all of the cattle panicked, and they all ran to one side of the bridge, and the whole thing just toppled over and collapsed into the river. You guys are all going, oh no, and I'm sitting up here laughing.
I'm
It's
laughing.
okay, they're so
I'm
good.
laughing plenty.
They are very dead now. It's true, 1863.
It's like long enough ago that it's okay to laugh about those cows a little bit. It's like sad, but it is kind of fun.
Yes,
It's
and
not too soon.
it's not too soon. And to be fair, I mean, yes, a lot of cows died. I believe a couple of people died in that accident too. But there were cows that were able to swim to shore.
Oh,
So
good.
they did just fine.
Good.
But again, going back on, this was a long time ago, even if those cows made it to shore, they're still dead now. So doesn't matter anymore, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but they made it to shore, so.
They made it to the slaughterhouse anyway. Yes,
They
thank you.
escaped
You're
to a
correct.
pasture and lived a
Yes.
happy life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I like that optimism. We'll go with that.
I just want to say, everyone on the internet also very confused that cows can swim.
I guess me too. I never really thought about it. I just kind of like took that story at face value of like, of course, I don't know.
Oregon Trail?
I never played Oregon Trail. I don't know. Anyway, so it's not safe to cross the bridges. It's not safe to be on the bridges because you never know when like a tugboat is going to blow its whistle and then all the cattle are going to storm off and then you're going to be thrown into the river regardless. Pretty great, right? 1864, again, another accident, Clark Street Bridge. There was a man dying, and they said that acknowledging justice of the reprimand administered to them by the coroner's jury on the late fatal accident at the bridge, authorities have placed storm reflectors in each of the gas lamps. Other bridges are just as much in need of a similar appliance. Must a man be killed at each before a remedy is applied? So we are at like 5 years from the first time that someone fell into the river because they couldn't see the bridge, and the city is like, fine, I guess at one bridge we can put in some reflectors so you can see the light a little bit more.
It really makes you take like street lights for granted.
It really does.
You're okay
Yeah.
with the humans going, but the cows, there's a big problem. Yeah, okay, just want to be clear on that.
I mean, I can understand. The cows are the sad thing. Like, I can watch anything I watch on TV. People die, that's fine. I don't care. Anything about cats, can't watch it. Not at all. Anyway. So, if you're on the bridge and the bridge starts to move, you've caught the bridge. Alright, you're going to be stuck there for a while. Even if you're not trying to do the silly thing of like jumping from the bridge to shore to bridge, whatever that a lot of people did, caused a lot of injuries, you might be stuck with the bridge to the point where you are at the front of the crowd, at the edge of the bridge while it's moving, and there's a whole surge of people behind you. Yes, there is no gate to keep you on that bridge as it's moving. And in 1866, there is a woman named Miss Simmons who was pushed off the bridge. And it was just because there were a bunch of people behind her and they accidentally pushed her off. She had nothing to hold on to, and she unfortunately drowned. 1867, same thing happens to a French woman. And this is the point where they start realizing, well, if people are falling into the river from the bridges, can we do anything about it?
Swim lessons.
Swim lessons! Far thinking ahead, you're going to have to start that when they're very young, but sure, okay, that's a way to help, I guess. Anyway, and said, quote, "It is exceedingly strange that no humane apparatus is at hand at the bridges to be used in such cases where someone falls into the river. A boat would be a good investment at each bridge, and it would seem to be almost criminal negligence which omits to place a rope and hook at the disposal of the men in charge of each bridge. Another evidence of official carelessness at the bridges was noticed last evening at Lake Street. The bridge was swung before a team had left, and the wagon narrowly escaped a capsizing." So you fall into the river, and there is nothing down below that can help pull you out. It's just going to be based on like whoever is down there and working, and if they want to and if they can help pull you out. This is also something that like we still are kind of debating about today in Chicago, which is weird, having life preservers at different spots. I don't remember the full details of the story, but I know last year I believe there was a young man who drowned after jumping or falling off one of the piers up on the north side by one of the beaches, and there were not any life preservers there, so the family and the community was working to try and put life preservers there, and the city kept taking them down, saying these are not official, we don't want to be liable for anything. And it's just this weird back and forth of like, why the hell are you arguing about liability for something when this is something that could help. Like, that's the only thing it's going to do. And it's almost the same thing here. Like, do we want something down there to fish people out of the river in the 1860s? I don't know. Maybe, probably, who knows. Now, the other thing about this is you'll notice is the bridge swung before a team had left and the wagon narrowly escaped a capsizing. So if you were on the bridge and you were in a carriage too, the bridge might start opening and you have to hope that if you're like going over that gap, that you make it over the gap before the bridge is just kind of like gone. You know, bridge tenders are supposed to look for this, but they don't always. They're kind of like operating on their own thing, and they're really like paying attention more to the river than they are the people on the bridge. So I think it was 1859, I said the first time that they had like a gate that they were maybe considering at the bridges. And they started working on this project again 1878. They wanted to try out some new gates, specifically at the Clark Street Bridge here. And the idea of gates that they had in 1878 were things that would automatically lower as the bridge was turning, which is a good idea, right? But they would automatically lower only if the bridge tender like wound up some sort of a mechanism and then started to turn the bridge. So no guarantee that the bridge tender is actually going to like take the time to wind up this other thing before moving the bridge when he's spent all these years just moving the bridge whenever he needs. Now the gates that they had here would automatically lower, but they would only lower till about 4 feet from the ground, so something like this high or so. And they lowered just low enough to prevent like wagons and teams of horses from going on or off the bridge, but not people. They like specifically left it so that if people needed to scramble under and go on or off the bridge, they could still do that.
That sounds like you're gonna get squished by a railing.
It sounds like you're going to get squished by a railing. Yeah, and that was actually some of the criticisms when they were talking about this. They were worried that if they had these automatic gates on the bridges that people, as they tried to go under, would be hit in the head and then they would be injured that way. Not like they're already getting injured from the bridge itself and falling in the wire. And also the same with teams of horses, that if people were trying to go under these gates, they would lower and they would hit the horses and cause further damage. So it's interesting to kind of like see these critiques from it. The city itself was also kind of like unsure about the bridges because, again, these just seemed like more things for them to have to maintain. They said that, quote, the long gibbons of the sailcraft are often thrust out over the approaches of bridges, so they were worried that if they put in any kind of safety mechanisms or lights on the land instead of on the bridges themselves, that the boats were just going to end up wrecking all of them, and then they'd have to keep paying to replace them, and it's just going to be kind of a pain in the ass to have to deal with that over and over again and spend money over and over dealing with these things that the boats are just going to destroy. Yeah. So totally not worth it, right?
Not at all.
Not at all, no.
How tall is a cow? Could they fit under the gate?
How tall is a cow? I don't know. You're from Texas. You need to have these answers, not me. I'm from the Midwest. I'm from Chicago.
All the
Yes,
cows
Leyla,
drown.
How many hands is a cow?
Thank you. Yeah, all the cows drowned. How many hands is a cow? I don't know. Do we count?
Depends
They're
on the
huge.
kind of
They're
cow.
enormous.
Yeah.
Different.
Do we count like the height of cows and hands though, or is that just horses?
I think that's horses.
I don't know.
That's
All I
a
know
good
is I grew up
question.
on a dairy farm. Don't fuck with cows.
Yeah, don't fuck with cows is good. That's good advice overall.
You're so about that
Great.
I appreciate
Safety
that. Yeah, so far that's the bridge safety tip we have. Don't mess with cows. Good.
Did the teeter-totter thing ever cause any problems with humans, or like was that only when there's a huge load of weight on it?
That, as far as I know, that's like the only big issue that they had where the whole thing collapsed. That being said, next story I'm about to get into is about a different bridge, but also a swinging bridge, of course. And the bridge tenders talking about how unsafe they were and like how they didn't want people on the bridge when it was open, and it happened anyway. So it's kind of rickety. I would imagine it's probably a little seesaw-y, but that was the big time where it like collapsed and everyone kind of went, oh God, what just happened here? Now, 1879 is where we get to the first big accident on the bridges. I know, we've been talking about all these, right? These are just like little things that the city has been ignoring. But 1879 is where you get to the first big thing that happens that seems to actually kind of like make a ripple and make people go, oh wait, what's going on here? Maybe we should be doing something about this. So, 1879, there was a fire alarm that went off in the loop. It was late at night, middle of the night, and the first company to respond was actually a fire company that was just over the river. And so they quickly, got 5 firemen on the cart. They got the horses there because 1879, so it's horse-pulled fire carts, right? And they start racing down to the State Street Bridge. And as they make the approach to the bridge, not many lights, they can't really see anything. They assume that the bridge is there. And it's not until they can't really put the brakes on the horses that they realize that the bridge is actually completely open and there is nothing there. So the cart starts going towards the water. Most of the firemen are able to actually kind of like jump off as they see what's going to happen. They realize they can't stop the horses. One of them jumps off and like manages to get a lantern that was on the cart like in his mouth so that they still had some light, which is amazing. But unfortunately, pipeman Henry T. Coyle went over with the wagon and the horse straight into the river. So the bridge tender, his name was Martin Casey. He was a veteran bridge tender. He served for like 37 years, something like that. Heard the splash and like realized something had happened. And
Splash, ooh, something happened.
yeah, that's how the bridge tenders knew. They would hear a splash and go, "Oh no, something's wrong." A splash of death.
Reactive in Chicago, not proactive, reactive.
Very reactive. This entire story is just reactive, and that's it. So yeah, the horse cart and the horses and Henry Coyle went straight into the river. They were able to fish out the cart and the horse and Henry the next day. Unfortunately, they found him. He was with the cart, and they said he like had his arms wrapped tight around him, but he drowned in this incident. And yeah, the next day they pulled him up. This is a story I actually found like years ago, and I didn't find the follow-up information on it until a few years later. So I was wondering for a while if there was like an 1870s like fire truck in the river, but they did pull it up. They said there's pieces of it that are still down there, but anyway, they said that his death was basically due to like criminal negligence from the city because there were no lights, and the lights were just on the bridge and not from the land, so they couldn't actually see anything. So again, it's the same issue. We've had this issue for like 20 years at this point, and the city is just like, yeah, man, that sucks. What do you want to do for lunch tomorrow? No. Same shit, different day. Yeah, and this, like, it still happens nowadays. This is like how we react to things. It's really, really terrible. Yeah, they said that, like, if you're trying to cross, you need to, like, see if the lights were there for the bridge or not. And if they're not, then you know that the bridge is not in place, so you can't cross it. But it's just like these lights aren't really noticeable, and especially if you're rushing to a fire in the middle of the night, you're not going to be paying attention to it. Not to mention, like, if you are not from Chicago and you don't know what the system is and you're just trying to cross at night, like, you're not going to think, oh, the bridge is probably not there. I might fall into the river and drown, right? So it's just weird. It's bad. So this is the first big accident from it. And there were a few things that happened from it, most notably between this and the next like really big accident that got a lot of people's attention, which was in 1883, so 4 years later. So they, in this time period, managed to put like chains in front of the bridges. So if the bridge is opening, they're going to have a chain on the land. So you'll see it and you'll know like, hey, you probably shouldn't cross because the bridge is not here. This is still not really great. A chain is going to be like a visual signal, but it's not actually going to stop anything from going through it. And that's exactly what happened in 1883. There was a father with his 3 children that were in the proper response there, yes. They were in a cab. So they had a driver there, they had the horses, and they pulled up to the Polk Street Bridge, and the chain was up, and the bridge was fully open, and it's the middle of the day. And horses are kind of anxious, they don't like what's going on, and there was a train that was like just north of the bridge that blew its whistle, and it spooked the horses, and there was something underneath the bridge on the water that happened, let off a lot of noise, also spooked the horses. Driver was very experienced, said that, he had been here before with the horses being really nervous at all these noises. He was able to control them, but then the lead broke and he lost control of them. And they went straight through the chain and straight into the river. So at this point in time, the driver was able to jump out of the cab as it fell into the river, and he survived. The father was able to open the door and get out just as the cab was about to go in the river and like hold on to the street so he didn't fall in. And he tried to grab for his kids, but he couldn't. So they were able to immediately pull up the horse and the carriage, and in it they found the body of Christina Bezzi, I believe is the last name. She was 16 years old. She had passed away. And it wasn't until the next day that they found the other two children, Josephine, 12, and James, 10 years old, in the river. So chains are really not doing anything here. Coroner's jury at that time said, "We, the jury, are at a loss to account for the total indifference of city authorities in not providing safeguards at the approaches to our city river bridges, they having had their attention called to it by a similar accident where life was lost in the same way on a former occasion. We are constrained on this occasion to denounce this neglect on the part of our city as nothing short of criminal negligence." So again, the city hasn't done anything. It's the city's fault for not providing this safety. Response at the time said, it's kind of a lengthy quote, but I think it's some good insights. I'm just going to read the whole thing. When you come to look at it, the percentage of deaths resulting from this cause will not exceed those occurring from other accidents. Look at the terrible calamities that occur on the railroads and the accidents that happen on the streets every day. There are millions of passengers that cross the bridges every year, and yet within the last year, I know of but 4 accidents that have occurred. This affair of Thursday night was a very sad one, and I am in favor of adopting any measure that would save one human life. When asked, will the city do anything about it? What's the plan? The response was, well, nothing but what it now has. We have tried all kinds of gates. However, if we should use any gate, I would be in favor of having it located 18 or 20 feet back of the approach and have it worked by a man kept there for that purpose. Heretofore, all the gates have been automatic and have been close to the edge of the river. This is wrong, as we want such gates to be worked intelligently, and we want them so far back that a horse breaking through them could be checked up before being precipitated into the water. This would require a force of 66 men to attend to each approach. For 33 bridges, 66 men. But, as I said, I do not think the number of deaths from this cause is very great, and there does not seem to be any need of more precaution. So we should totally do anything to make sure that kids don't die again. We're not going to actually do anything about it, though, because it's going to cost way too much money.
It's the same stuff that we have now.
It's the exact same stuff, yeah.
It's the same words. Crime is rising in Lakeview. Well, it's not significant.
Yeah. Yeah, anything you look at nowadays, it's just like, oh, this thing is terrible. We should do something. Yeah, we're not going to do anything about it. I don't know. Whatever. It could be worse. If it's worse, maybe we'll do something about it. And then it gets worse, and then nothing happens. Just over and over and over again. They specifically said, 1883 here, that the city wouldn't care, but they would care if a streetcar fell in, and obviously everyone would die, and there'd be more of an issue. So, you don't want that to happen with them when that happens. It's going to be a problem, and then people will care about it again. That did not actually happen, as far as I know, which is good. I guess we'll count that as, the good part of this talk today. I don't know. It almost happened, though. One example of that is just from 1900. There was an eastbound Ogden streetcar that was about to go over the Randolph Street Bridge. He stopped before the bridge, which he was supposed to do, and then he proceeded to start going over the bridge at the exact same time that the bridge tender decided that he was going to start turning the bridge. So the streetcar was left, I think, half on the bridge and half on the shore, and it kind of, fell in between and got crushed by just some, part of the bridge that was there, and no one died from it. They were all able to escape. It was fine. It was just kind of a screaming match between the streetcar driver and the bridge tender. But yeah, terrible things that almost happened. Question.
What were the bridges made? What was the material of what they were constructed?
That's a really good question, and I don't have a concrete answer for you.
Can you repeat the question?
No, I will not repeat the question. You'll never know. Ha ha ha. The question is, what were the bridges made out of? They slowly, as far as I understand it, kind of evolved from wood to more wood, iron, wood, and steel, and then to what you have today, which is mostly iron and steel, and it was kind of a slow evolution as you were going towards that. That almost brings me to my next topic, but I'm going to take a pause before we go there. So I've been talking a lot about what it's like to be in Chicago and how dangerous these bridges are and what you're going to have to do to cross them right and how they can just kind of drop from under you and you have no idea and whatever. It's probably your fault anyway. The city doesn't care. I want to talk a little bit about what it was like if you were actually working as a bridge tender on the bridges. Because because it's kind of interesting. So this information here is from the 1890s, like 1896 or so. This is from Chicago Tribune. It says, quote, "If the bridge tender should write a book of all he knows, timid people would not sleep nights." Ooh, mysterious. 1890s. "The river has its secrets. Tramp roosts are common along the wharfs, and warm nights fights take place. The noise is hushed up in a hurry, and the next morning something ghastly floats down under the bridge and is fished out with a boat hook. The bridgeman in his little engine house, 40 feet above the slime, has a reserved seat to view these encounters, and this does not make his life safer after nightfall."
Slime.
Murder. Yeah. They said, quote, "A veteran Chicago bridge tender bases his record on the number of lives he has saved." They said that the bridges in Chicago were unfortunately a pretty common place for people to try and go and complete suicide. So Martin Casey, who I had mentioned briefly before, he was the bridge tender when the fire truck went into the river. He was in charge of the bridge at that point in time. He had worked as a bridge tender for 34 years, and he said he'd saved 17 people who had purposefully jumped into the river, which is pretty great. There was another man, a black man named Lewis McHenry, who was a bridge tender on Madison Street Bridge, and he said he'd saved 5 or 6 lives because he could see them, and you could like kind of eventually learn to get the look of like someone who is contemplating completing suicide, jumping into the river, and he would see them, and he was able to use the trap door in the bridge house to quickly go down to the river, get in a boat, and then actually fish them out of the water. So kind of interesting to see that view from it too. This is from an interview with a bridge tender about how many times do you turn the bridge every day. About 70 on average, but we don't keep any record. This, of course, is for the 10 hours put in by the day crew. The night crew turns oftener than we do. Well, one day last summer, we turned about 250 times in the 20 working hours. Sometimes we drop down to about 25 turns or in the neighborhood of 50 for the entire day. So imagine like 250 times the bridge is opening in one day.
That's insane.
It is
Get
insane.
anywhere.
Yeah, you're not going to get anywhere. These were complete like traffic jams, log jams. They were terrible. It was a big
Once every
issue.
6 minutes.
Hmm?
That's once every 6 minutes.
6 minutes, yeah, great. Hope it takes like less than 6 minutes to get over the bridge then. Probably doesn't. You're going to get stuck.
Yeah, I know a stoplight like that.
How long does it take to spin it?
How long does it take to spin it? Good question. I don't have that information in my notes, but I think it was something like a minute and a half, a minute if they're fast. Took like usually like 2 men to spin it open. So, when asking like, do you ever have any fun with the drivers who get caught on the bridge and have their teams turn in the opposite direction? Because these bridges, by the way, they're not just like open and closed. They can go full any direction they want. So like if you want to mess with someone and they're trying to cross, they get on the bridge, you open here, they get here, and then you can close it this way. If you just want to be real mean about it. This bridge tender said, "Oh yes, it's fun to hear them swear." I tell you, some of the drivers know how to swear too. We catch more of the smart drivers who think their teams are fast enough to cross after we commence moving than any others. We often have to stop the countrymen who start over on the wrong side, and they get mad too. They seem to think we try to impose on them. I guarantee you there was some bridge tender having a bad day that was like, no, screw you, I'm going to move this all the way around, and you're going to have a bad day too. Anyway. They said 2 men are required to handle the levers, which are 18 feet in length and which have to be turned 11 times to open or close the bridge. This is on the Clark Street Bridge in the 1896, I believe. So it's a lot of work.
So it was opened by people like pushing a lever back and forth?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of like literally like turn the wheel.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they said, quote, accidents have been numerous. Horses with vehicles have been swung out with the bridge. There being no safety gates at either end, the animals have backed off into the river. So also at the approaches where there are no gates, fractious horses have plunged into the stream. Once at night, a horse cart racing fire was driven straight into an open draw. The only signal of the opening after dark is a red light, often misleading. So again, this is like 1890s, and they're still thinking back to this event from 1879 of the fire truck going into the river. So by the time you get to the 1890s here, it's pretty obvious that like the swing bridges are not a great solution for river traffic because the boats hit them, and they're not great for road traffic either because people have to wait and they get mad and then they get hurt when they try and like run over the bridge anyway, and they shouldn't, right? So they start trying to think like, okay, we need to redo the bridge structure. What are we going to do here? What's going to be better? And again, they're still thinking on this idea of like river traffic is king, right? That's what we're going to try and pay attention to. So there were a few different bridge structures that they tried. One of them that I want to talk about is Harbin's folding bridge. In the photo packets that you all have, there is a picture of the folding bridge. So you can see what this is.
Or what? Page 3.
Is it page 3?
Image 3. If you're on the web, if you're on the link. Image 3.
Oh my god, I lied. The folding bridge is not on here.
Oh man.
It's on the QR code link.
It's on the QR code link. There you go. So if you have that, I'm just going to demonstrate what it looked like. So it's from 1890, and it's basically the idea of the folding bridge is that instead of it being a swing bridge that opened, you had like a bridge like this, and then when a boat needed to come through, it folded up. Yeah, and then it would fold back down again.
Whoa.
Fancy. Yeah, interesting. The city built 2 of these. The first one was kind of like a trial version of the bridge. I think the original idea was to actually have like 2 leaves of the bridge that closed, and then they would both open up. But the first version they did of it was crossing on the north branch from Weed Street on Goose Island, I believe, and it was just like a single leaf, so it would have been like this and then just closed up. The city thought it was a good idea. They built another one, and there was this great article about a bunch of engineers from the Western Society of Engineers, 100 of them total in like the 1890s, right after they built this thing, going out on like a tour of the city of Chicago via the river to see like all the engineering feats of the city, and they looked at this folding bridge and they all thought it was terrible. The city thought it was great, but these engineers were like, this is awful. They said it was a political stunt, and they said that, quote, the city needed it about as much as a wagon needed a 5th wheel. The bridge was opened and shut several times to let the men of science see it. The noise made by the operation was something fearful. It sounded like an old-fashioned thrashing machine badly in need of oil.
What is a thrashing machine?
Farm equipment.
It separates wheat grain.
It separates wheat grain. Thank you. I totally knew that. Great. Yeah.
That's the only reason.
Yeah. So basically, it sounded terrible. They said it wasn't like well designed either, and there was like a lot of vibration from like traffic going over it. And the 2 like Harmon's folding bridges that they had were like out of use by 1900, and they were eventually torn down. But it's just interesting, and it's also kind of funny that like these engineers are like, this thing is terrible. You spent so much money on it. Why did you do this? It's awful. But the thing about the folding bridge here is the fact that it is a folding bridge and not a swing bridge. So this is like one of the first big steps towards like getting rid of the swing bridge problem here in Chicago. So instead of, you know, having the pier that things can run into and that people are going to walk off the edge of, all of a sudden you have the folding bridge that can fold up. You don't have a pier in the middle of the water that boats are going to run into, and you also have a wall. Whoa. It's an automatic gate. Yeah, finally we're like getting somewhere. Throughout the 1890s, the city continued to try and test different styles of gates at the bridges, regardless of this though. In 1891, the city said, okay, like if you are an inventor, you have an idea for a gate, like you can come, you can pitch it to us, and we're going to take the best ideas, the cheapest and simplest to operate, and we're going to try them. They said that a lot of people came in with ideas for gates here. The models that they brought were usually made of walnut wood and ornamented with polished brass finishings, which is just really funny to think of like an infrastructure model made out of walnut and brass. You're not going to see that nowadays, but hello, 1891. One of the ideas that someone had for like a bridge gate was something that was like a giant letter H that was lifted up like a windmill, And they said when the bridge opened, it would like rotate and lower and form a gate and then rotate and go back up. I can't fully imagine what that looks like.
Witchcraft.
Witchcraft, sure, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's interesting to look at like designs from 130 years ago and be like, what the hell were you thinking? But okay. And that's kind of what that is. It's a good thing that, you know, by the 1890s, they're again considering these gates because they had the chains at the time to prevent people from going through, but they aren't really useful. As we've seen, like, carriages will just go straight through them. They said that they had policemen that were there to operate the chains, and by operate, I mean just, like, pull them across and then move them again. But with the boat, if the bridge is trying to move, people are ignoring the policeman and they're trying to get over the bridge anyway. So he has to dodge all of the traffic, so it's really dangerous. And as he's putting the chain up, people are still going over it and trying to go on the bridge, so he has to try and grab them and pull them back from trying to hurt themselves. When they talked about, like, actually using policemen with the chains, again, at the entrance to every bridge, they said that from an unnamed city employee, it is, quote, improbable, and to do so would be foolish. The expense of putting up this chain guard is from $75 to $100, and then it requires a healthy policeman $1,000 a year to operate it. If it is a good thing, if it is a good thing, it ought to be used night and day and at both ends of the bridge, and that means the muscular services of 4 policemen. Muscular services. Yeah.
What year was this?
This is 1890s. I'm not quite sure the exact year on that. You can call it 1895, call it in the middle. Something like that. So, kind of went back and forth with all this. And then we finally start to make progress on bridge safety when we get to early 1900s, 1902, the State Street Bridge downtown, formerly a swing bridge. It's a photo that is actually in all of your packets there. Is replaced by a Scherzer rolling lift bridge, which is not the kind of bridge that you find in Chicago nowadays. That is a trunnion bascule style bridge, but it is similar to that. State Street Bridge itself was replaced to be a trunnion bascule style bridge in 1949. I believe that was completed. But again, it's similar to the idea of the folding bridge here, and it's basically the idea where you have either a single leaf or a double leaf here. And this is describing like the trunnion bascule bridge, which is what we have in Chicago today. Been around for over 100 years, so I guess we're sticking with this as a solution. And if you have the double leaf here, you have 2 parts of the bridge that meet in the middle. They are counterbalanced. When the bridge needs to open, counterbalance lowers, the bridge opens up. And then it closes again. So finally, we have a bridge like this with like a natural barrier and a natural gate at State Street in 1902. And accidents start to drop. We start kind of running into some other problems. This bridge, by the way, though, was popular enough that there were editorials in the Trib talking about how if aldermen wanted to win election or re-election, they just had to like build bascule bridges because everyone liked them over swing bridges. So if you get that, then like good job, you'll win your seat back, which is pretty awesome.
Low bar.
What?
I said this low bar.
A low bar, yeah. Well, Chicago, yeah. So finally, we have some sort of a gate that is automatic that actually works with bridges here in Chicago. Now, you kind of have this like transition period between all the swing bridges that were in the city to this like Scherzer rolling lift or the bascule, eventually all to the bascule style bridges that happened in the early 1900s. The other thing that starts to happen in the 1900s is you see this evolution, especially when you get into the 1920s, of instead of river traffic being the really important thing, it's road traffic, and it is cars. Mm-hmm. And cars start to provide another safety issue here. Yeah. One example of that is in 1909, there was a driver who lost control of his car, and he was about to go over the bridge, and the bridge tender was opening the bridge, and it was just swinging open when the bridge tender was actually paying attention, and he noticed that this car was out of control coming straight for the opening of the bridge, and he managed to close it shut again just in time for the car to go over the bridge, go to the other side, and then it crashed over there. I think everyone was fine with that. It was just like the driver lost total control. But if the bridge tender hadn't been paying attention, that car would have gone straight in the river and people would have died from that incident. And in this, they mentioned that the driver kept going, and he had even ignored the electric gong that they had in place. So by 1900s, you have an automatic electric gong that sounds. You also had bells that would be operated by hand. And there was also a giant sign with 5-foot-tall illuminated letters that said, "Stop!" So they're really trying to hammer home, like, do not cross the bridge. You cannot do it right now. This is bad. They still had the chains in front at this time, though. Chains, again, are like even less useful against a car than they are against a team of horses that get spooked, though. 1916, there was a man named Hugo Warner who was driving his car with, it was him and like 5 other people in the car, and they sped off the 12th Street Bridge. It was a swing bridge that was open at the time, and the chain did not stop the car, and 4 out of the 6 people in that accident died. Yeah. A lot of people die off the bridges here at the river. So even then, like 1916, they're still talking about the idea of like, do we want to have guards at all of the entrances to the bridges to stop this? And even then, they're saying, oh, that's 300 men per 8-hour shift. It's not feasible to do that. We're not going to do it. This accident in 1916, again, sparked a decent amount of outrage. There were investigations into the bridges to see, like, how safe are they really? And they found that some of them did have the safety mechanisms, like the gongs and the bells and the lights actually in place. And then others didn't have them in place to the point where it would be the bridge tender saying, well, it's been broken. And I said it was broken, but it's been a while now. I don't know what to do about it. So you just might not have the lights. Bells actually going off. This was the same year that at the Lake Street Bridge, they tried to put up a new barrier that, quote, a drunk or careless chauffeur crashing through the first or the guard gate will strike a 16-inch boom and slide it against what is known as friction resistance for such a distance as either to stop the machine or, if the speed of the machine is unreasonable, wreck it beyond repair. So they start putting up some sort of a boundary, which it sounds kind of funny to say wreck it beyond repair, but I mean, honestly, that's kind of like what we have now, right? When you are on highways or anywhere, you have those guardrails that the goal is like to stop the car and to stop it from going over. And if you wreck the car, that's better than, it going over. And that's kind of the idea that they had here. Now, as cars continue to take over and river traffic lessens in the city, again, you have the building of more of these bascule bridges, and that just kind of like solves a lot of this problem in and of itself. The bridges before, they were a lot of times at the mercy of the bridge tenders, where they are going to be opened when boats need to pass, and the bridge tenders are going to be in charge of it. But they really start like slowly between like the 1880s, 1890s to the 1920s. I almost said to now because I don't know what year it is anymore. Start enforcing more ordinances about it. In 1925, Alderman John Coughlin, Bathhouse John, started introducing a resolution to the city council to make sure that the bridge hours were enforced, the bridge opening hours. And that basically meant at that time that they did not want the bridges to be able to open in the morning or the evening for rush hour. And they even took this a step further. In 1928, they were trying to propose different ordinances saying that bridge openings cannot be open during the day. And it's just at night that they're doing this. So you really see this like total pivot from we don't care about people, we care about the goods on the river, to like the cars are more important and the street traffic, and we're going to really focus on that.
Plus, Bathhouse John loved to be elected.
He did. And I mean, as they said, bascule bridges, easy things. So he's going to like work with what the people want here. Question in the back.
Quick question. So you're kind of entering the era when the city's economic prosperity increasingly shifted from water travel to rail, etc. So 1910s, 20s, when the river is definitely declining as a major source of commercial activity, especially with like the Port of Calumet opening. Are there any statistics about how swiftly bridge deaths dropped in that era?
Can you try to summarize the question?
Oh, yeah, it's a great
I just nerded
question.
you. I'm sorry.
I was like, that sounded like a lot of
It's a
answers
great
and then a question.
It was a lot of answers and a comment and a question all in one, and the short answer is I have no clue. To summarize, the question was basically talking about how like 1910s, 1920s, you have all the river traffic and all that like kind of economy driven from that starts dropping off, and therefore you have the focus more on the bridges actually being down and road traffic. So are there statistics on like how much bridge deaths dropped off at that point in time? The answer is I have no clue. Great question. I don't actually know of any place where they have any of the like statistics for bridge deaths tallied up like this. So that sounds like it would be a really, really fun project that would take me a lot of time to do, and I might do it in the future. I don't know.
We have a burning question over here.
A burning question.
And it's for those of us who are unenlightened. Can you just real quick let us know why this guy is called Bathhouse John? In like 3 sentences or.
Repeat the question.
You can go more than 3 sentences.
I just don't want to take up your bridge time, but I
Lift it up.
need to know.
It's some funny stories.
He worked in a bathhouse. He was a rubber in a bathhouse, and that's how he got the name.
Here's a what?
He was a rubber in a bathhouse, and that's how he got the name, which sounds terrible, which is why I said it that way.
A condom?
No, like a guy with sponges. Right?
Oh,
Yes, like a guy with sponges.
rubber.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I did. Yes.
Bathhouse John was a notoriously corrupt alderman in the city of Chicago. I'm not going to get hugely into it, but he got the name Bathhouse because he worked in a bathhouse, I believe, as a rubber, like as a massage person, which at the time you called them rubbers, which just sounds terrible nowadays, but it's kind of funny. So yeah, he got that name because that was kind of his origin story.
Cool.
Yep. Good
Thank
question.
you for sharing.
Well, we're gonna do questions more at the end. Unless you'd like to answer.
We'll go through and finish things because I'm like a few minutes away from ending. I don't have no concept of how long this talk has gone, but we're almost done. I'm almost out of notes. Great. So let's do that and give me like 5 minutes and then we can go through questions and I'll answer them all as best as I can. What was I talking about? That was not Bathhouse John.
1910, 1920.
1910s, 1920s, yes. All right, so we switched to bascule style bridges, right? And these are a lot safer because, again, they're a natural barrier. I tried to say gate and barrier at the same time here. So people aren't going over them. And, of course, you have this, like, preference for the road traffic over the water traffic anyway, so the bridges are going to be closed a lot more. So it's a lot less of an issue. But you still get some issues sometimes, usually due to more, like, human error. With the raising and the lowering of the bridges. One example of that comes from 1937. I think there are some pictures in the handout from this. There was a man named Livio Cortesia, and he died when he drove off of the Jackson's Bridge. It was in the middle of the night, and the bridge tender had decided that they were going to raise one side of the bridge, but not the other one, to let a boat through. Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, they said that the fuse was blown so that the lights were not working and the gate was not working. And the bridge tender working that gate had phoned the other bridge tenders. They all said, "No, we don't see anyone coming. It's probably fine." So they lifted up one side of the bridge to let a boat through, and then this poor man drove off and straight into the river. So human error. But it's a lot less frequent at this point in time. Another example of this actually happened in more recent years in 1987, which is a little bit too close for comfort. On the Kinsey Street Bridge, there was a man named Ju Bang, who was 36. He was an immigrant here from Seoul, and he was driving a taxi. And he was actually driving on the bridge with 2 passengers when the bridge started to raise up. The bridge tender said he just didn't see that there was a car on the bridge at all, and he started to raise it, and it flipped the car over. The car had almost finished crossing the bridge when the gate went up, and it kind of like caught the cab between the gate on the street side and the bridge itself, and like the little ditch that you get when the bridge actually opens up right here. The passengers were able to run and escape. They tried to get the driver to come out, but he did not get out of the car in time, and he was crushed and killed from this. Left behind a wife and kid, which is terrible. Again, kind of a freak accident, but, you know, there are still issues on the bridges sometimes. And the last, like, accident I want to talk about here, no one died in it, so we'll call this a lighthearted ending to the story, I guess. It was a freak accident in 1992. They said they were doing work on the DuSable Bridge, the Michigan Avenue Bridge. North leaf of the bridge was open, south leaf of the bridge was down. There was a crane on the south leaf of the bridge, and something happened, freak accident, and the south leaf just went straight up, uncontrolled, and it just threw the crane backwards. So there was a man named Jesus Lopez who was actually sitting in his car at the base of the south leaf and was thrown up when the bridge opened and the crane smashed his car. He was okay, and apparently like the rest of the car was crushed, but he was sitting in the driver's seat and was not crushed to death.
Wow. Lucky.
Lucky, yeah. So, yeah, that kind of brings me to the end of my talk here. The basic moral of the story, I feel like, is people are dumb and they're going to think that they can escape getting crushed by a bridge, and you definitely can't always do that. So make sure you watch where you're going, especially with city infrastructure stuff. Corporations in the city are not going to do anything unless something absolutely major happens. So make sure you watch out where you're going again. And bridge safety was solved by needing different styles of bridge in the city of Chicago that was also tangentially related to safety. So yeah, don't cleanse the bridges nowadays. Thanks, everyone. Okay, questions?
So, oh, I'm sorry, I thought she had her hand up. Okay, so we were talking from 1838 until, let's say, 1920. How many total lives were lost? Do you know? Like,
I don't know.
it's sort of.
Yeah, I'll repeat the question. So the question was between 1830s and 1920s or so, how many lives were lost on the bridges? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if there are any statistics specifically about that out there. It would be a good thing to research. My gut feeling would be that in order to figure that out, we'd be definitely doing a manual count, looking through different ways people have died in newspaper articles and that kind of a thing. So,
Thanks.
yeah.
Are there any swing bridges or even non-bascule style bridges left in Chicago that are in use?
Good question. Are there any swing bridges or non-bascule style bridges left in Chicago that are still in use? Yes, there are. I don't have a catalog of them all in my head. There are, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the website, but there's a few different websites that catalog different historic bridges and what used to be there, what is still there. I know there are still a few of the Scherzer rolling lift style bridges. The one that comes to my mind is by the Spice Barrel Lofts in Chinatown. They're weird artsy warehouses, and there is a Scherzer style rolling bridge there. Also by Chinatown, you can see it from Ping Tom Park, there is a lift bridge that is, I think, from 1908, and it's the coolest thing in the world. Amtrak owns it, and it still lifts up, and it's a bridge with a little bridge house on the top of it that would make an awesome Airbnb. And that bridge will actually, instead of swinging open or anything, it just rises 100 feet up in the air straight to the top and then goes back down. So it's a really cool one. And there's more, but I don't know them off the top of my head.
And what is that called?
That's just a lift bridge, I believe. Yeah.
We have an internet question. Can you speak a little bit about bridge automation? Where are the bridge tenders now?
Oh, that's a really good question. Bridge automation and where are the bridge tenders? I actually don't know a whole lot about this topic.
It's fair.
Yeah.
Some depth. Okay.
I don't know a whole lot, so I'm not going to give any answers. But I would say check out the Bridge Museum, because I know there's a Bridge Museum in Chicago. I went there once a decade ago. It's really cool. I need to go back. They'll have a lot of information.
Dave Matthews Band?
That's the best bridge story of all time.
That's right.
Yeah, the Dave Matthews Band bridge story. Sure. Was it 2004? Yeah, it's a real shitty story, that's for sure. It's infamous. It's a great story to tell, by the way, if you ever do architecture boat tours. The 4 months I did boat tours, I love telling this story. So the basics of the story is there was an open air boat tour. It was August something, I think, 2004, that was going underneath the Kinsey Street Bridge at the same time that the Dave Matthews Tour Bus was going over the bridge, and the driver decided that he was going to empty the septic tank into the river. But he emptied it onto the tour boat.
Bad timing.
Bad, all
Also
bad,
just
all bad.
generally illegal, right?
Oh yeah, it's super illegal. I believe I don't remember the whole details, but I think there was a lot of money that exchanged hands of I'm sorry, this is for cleaning the river and environmental things. And Dave Matthews Band being we didn't know what was going on, and the driver getting in trouble. Yeah, it's a great story to tell when you're passing directly under that on the tours. Anyway, in the back.
Okay, So, quick comment. All the tender houses, there's a project to actually slowly reactivate them. I think the name literally might be Chicago Tender House Project. Definitely look it up. It's really cool because they're all just sitting there vacant generally. But my question was, the L trains use the bridges to get into downtown. So are there any good stories of disasters, accidents, other things relating to the L trains trying to cross the bridges into the loop?
Great comment, great question. So comment was there is a project that is going on called, what was it called?
I think it's literally called like Chicago Tender House Project or
Chicago
Bridge House Project.
Chicago Tender House Project or Chicago Bridge House Project, something like that. I haven't heard of this. This is something I'll look up later about getting people like back into the bridge houses, which would be pretty cool. I would love to see more of those. Tender House Project, awesome. And then the other question was, you know, there are CTA trains that use the bridges, so are there any accidents related with that? Not as far as I know of. The closest thing that I know of are just like the streetcars that would try and cross the bridges. Sometimes the bridges try to open, and again, like nothing major happened with that, but arguments and some smashed streetcars.
Okay, so I lived in Florida for a while, and
Mhm.
it seemed that boat traffic always had precedence,
Mhm.
or whatever the word is. They were able to get the bridge to go up or down or whatever it is. That was what was more important. How did that work when you were doing 240 turns, you know, in a day, and you had a minute and a half or a minute to turn it, and then 4.5 minutes or so because you're doing it every 6 minutes
It's not
for
that,
traffic to go through. I
it's
mean,
closer to, based on the hours, it's closer to every 17 minutes.
okay, so which took,
Still, yeah.
who had the right of way? The
So-
boats or the pedestrians or the cattle or the wagons or whatever?
Great question. It's about, you know, back in the day who had the right of way of like people on the street and on the bridges versus people on the river. And it was definitely people on the river back in the day. And it was also definitely more aimed towards just the bridge tenders. Because like they kind of started to be regulated more and more, but especially early on, they were just going to open whenever they wanted to be open. Like you, every once in a while, you would hear stories about them like leaving the bridges open for like an hour or something. So you're just stuck, which would suck if you're on the bridge and you had to pee or something. To figure out a solution. But yeah, I definitely went to the river traffic, and then that's why it's kind of like interesting to see that evolution from river traffic to like cars and automobiles, and like they want to give precedence to that, and you can't just open the bridges willy-nilly, whereas back in the day it was like, well, obviously the ships are more important. Yeah.
Can I ask 2 questions?
No.
I'm gonna do it anyway, but I figured I'd ask. Do you know, like, as we went in deeper into the Victorian era, when it became illegal to have the cattle go through downtown? And also, my second question is, like, the north side was somewhat more residential, but we also had light industry. Do we have swing bridges and lit bridges on the north side?
2 great questions. First question was, I totally blanked on it.
Victorian era.
The, you know, like the cattle, one was illegal.
Oh
to
yes,
bring the cattle
yeah. When was
downtown.
it illegal to bring cattle downtown? I don't know off the top of my head. Sorry, and also the other one is on like swing bridges and everything on the north side, north of the river. I also don't know off the top of my head. Most of what I found was concerning just like in the downtown area itself or on the south side, not as much on the north side. So
Way less traffic on the north side, and
Yeah.
they didn't build the channel. They didn't channelize the north branch until 1910. So you weren't even really getting much boat traffic north
Okay.
until after 1908, 1910 or so.
for those of you watching online, Patty just said that that you weren't really getting a whole lot of river and boat traffic until like 1910, 1908. So kind of past this a lot of this point in time too. Yep.
Where was the first bridge in Chicago?
I believe it was by like where Dearborn is today. Do you know, I'm upset because I looked this up today and I put it in my notes, but it's not in the notes that are printed out, it's in the notes that are on my phone. I think it was over by Bridge, or by Dearborn downtown.
these early bridge deaths were before the reverse of the river. What was the riverbed and current like before the reversal?
Oh man, you guys are hitting with all the hard-hitting questions that I don't know. So this question feels like it was written out and planned in advance, and I appreciate that. I cannot answer it. So the question was, some of the early bridge deaths are before the reversal of the Chicago River. So what was the current light, and what was the current light, and the riverbed itself? I don't know. That sounds like a great thing to research. Good
It said
question.
there wasn't
Thank
going
you.
to be any math.
Guys, stick with death here. She's very good at death.
Mine's easy.
I like all these questions because this is a talk that I'm sure I will give again, and a tour I'm sure I'll give in the future. So it's great because it's great. It's more things to research going forward.
Could you speak to how well the bridges worked or did not work during the 1871 Great Chicago Fire?
Oh, that's a really good question. This question was how will the bridges work or not work during the fire in 1871? This is actually kind of like one of those rabbit holes that I started to stumble into when researching for this talk, and I kind of stopped myself because I wasn't able to do it. The story that I've always known about the bridges during the fire is that everyone was trying to cross over them, and they were, as far as I know, closed a lot because it's a lot of people on foot trying to get out of the loop and maybe falling off the bridges onto the boats below that are also trying to go through. And as far as I know, all of the bridges were burned. They were eventually destroyed, and they all had to be rebuilt. That being said, when I was doing this research, I found one article from, I don't know when, sometime in the 1800s after the fire, talking about, I think it was the Rush Street Bridge, where the bridge tender was talking about how he tried to keep it, I think, closed as long as possible, and then at the end managed to get himself and friends to take apart part of the bridge and cover it in wet rags so it did not completely get destroyed. Which is interesting because I've never heard that before. So yeah, I think my official answer is, as far as I know, they are all destroyed, but that might not be the case. Yeah.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you knew anything about what the working conditions were like for the bridge tenders, and did they have a bridge tenders union?
Oh, that's a really good question too. What were working conditions like for bridge tenders, and did they have a bridge tenders union? I have no idea if they had a bridge tenders union. Maybe, 1850s through now, I guess. Back in the day, the bridge tenders, especially as you get to the 1890s, it's kind of seen as a position that you might be awarded if someone owes you a favor for something. So there were stories of people who were bridge tenders, but they knew someone, and they also were the bridge tender at Dearborn, but they also had a saloon that was at the foot of the Dearborn Bridge. So they were paid a lot of money, and then when the bridge needed to be opened, they had people that they paid to open the bridge.
Oh.
So you get a little bit of kickback corruption from that. And then you also have people too who would just be the bridge tenders, and then they lived on the bridge itself. There were some people Martin Casey I mentioned who would do it for a very long time, and then a lot of other people who would kind of go into it for a few years and then phase out of it and never go back.
I have a question for maybe people who haven't ever given a boat tour. When do the bridges go up today? When do they go up? Why do people ever need the bridge to go up anymore?
When there's protests.
When there's protests, yeah.
When the boats go into their docks too, the sailboats.
That's the nice answer. When do the bridges go up nowadays is the question. Yeah, it's usually for the sailboats, so it's usually a few times in the spring, and then in the fall is when the bridges downtown will go up. If you ever catch them going up. It's really fun because you get to watch them. I always see them and they get really excited, and then you see videos of me on social media being like, look at the bridge, guys! And nowadays when they go up, they have like people there and the warning bells and the lights, and they like back it off to make sure that no one gets close to the bridge. That being said, in I think 2020, there were some videos coming out on social media of people claiming that they were stuck on the bridge, and it was them like climbing the bridges as they were up. Don't do that, you're gonna die, it's a bad idea. So that's primarily when they open the bridges nowadays. You know, as we are familiar with, in 2020 when they had a lot of protests downtown, they were opening all the bridges too to keep people either kettled in downtown or prevent them from going downtown as well, which was a controversial decision to say the least. So.
Were there excessive deaths during bridge deaths during the Columbian Exposition?
Oh, that's another great question. That will be wonderful research for a future variation of this tour. The question was, were there excessive bridge deaths during the Columbian Exposition? I don't know. I would imagine probably not, because most of that was situated pretty far south of the river and south of downtown. So once you're there, you're going to be downtown and then going further south, unless like meeting up north.
How deep is the river? And like, were most of these people drowning because they just couldn't swim, or like it was a really difficult condition to get out of if you're like splashed real hard into the river?
Good question. It was how deep is the river, and were people drowning because they couldn't swim, or what was the river like? I'm not entirely sure how deep the river is downtown. I feel like it's like 20 feet. Okay, yeah. So not super deep, but definitely deep enough to drown in. People also swam a lot less back in the 1800s, early 1900s. I remember with the Eastland disaster, which if you're not familiar, basic story of Eastland 1915, it was a boat that rolled over in the Chicago River and it killed 844 people. A lot of people in that accident died because their clothes were so heavy, you're just wearing a lot of cloth, it all gets waterlogged, and also a lot of people just couldn't swim. Yeah. So, and also if you're falling into the river from a height of like 20, 30, 40 feet, it's gonna shock you, and then if you can't swim and you have heavy clothes, like, it's a bad mix, for sure.
The river was also like catastrophically polluted back then, so like all the stuff in it is gonna make it hard to see and like.
Yeah, comment there was the river was catastrophically polluted back then. This is true. Something I think I forgot to mention when a bunch of like 100 engineers or whatever were laughing at that folding bridge. And they said that when they came back from their expedition, they had to cut part of it short because it was just so polluted and it smelled so terrible. And it also said that they were like totally covered in soot and like just completely black from pollution. So, yeah.
I have an internet question. How recently were the river crossings like privatized, or when exactly did the city take them over? And he says maybe you addressed it earlier, but.
Take them over in what sense?
Like you said, originally they were private crossings.
Oh, I think it was like 1856 or 1857 when they had the first like municipally funded bridges in Chicago. Prior to that, like most of the commerce in the city was all on like the south side and not the north side of the river. So it was like if you want to get across here to the other side, you figure it out. And then it started to spread. Yeah. Question.
Are there remnants of these early bridges still in the rivers?
Probably. Yeah, I know like there are like it was the Polk Street Bridge that the carriage with the 3 children who drowned fell off of. That bridge does not exist. It's taken down in the 60s or 70s, I think, but you can still see like the remains of it. And I'm sure there's a bunch of weird shit in the river. Because, like, when they pulled up that horse cart, they said they, like, got all of it except for the wheel and this and this. So, you know, part of an 1870s horse cart is in the river.
Alright, we can take 2 more questions.
Cool.
Other good bridge remnant is the remnant of the Garfield Park elevated lift bridge by Union Station. It's that like hunk of concrete that sticks out randomly.
Oh, okay.
Where the lift like basket used to be. That's a good one. But my question was, when the city started to redesign the main branch of the river for like Wacker Drive, and all of that, like how did that impact bridge operations? Just like the rethinking of the main stretch through there and the building of like the wharves and everything.
Oh, great question. I don't know how to summarize that.
This is what happens when you have an urban planner as a friend. He asks these crazy questions.
I appreciate that. Ask me these questions later, and I'll be able to research them and give you a better answer. But it was like, how did planning for the bridges and everything change as they had the plan with Wacker Drive, correct? And redoing everything. I don't know off the top of my head. I know all of that was kind of going off at the same point in time where they were experimenting with the different bridge types, like the folding bridge in the early 1890s and the Scherzer rolling lift. And that's about the same time, I believe, when they kind of like fully switched to the trunnion bascule style. So I don't know. My gut would say it was just kind of like incorporated and like grew up together with it of like, we're going to use this bridge. It seems to be working well. Here's how we incorporate it with the plan. Good question.
All right. Last question.
Last question.
Which bridge is responsible for the most death?
Ooh, good question. Which bridge is responsible for the most death? I don't know. I did say Clark a lot, yeah. Yeah, I feel like a lot of these stories centered around like Clark, the 12th Street, the Polk Bridge, and the like State Street and Rush. I'm gonna go with Rush, and I'm going to say the Rush Street Bridge, just because there were a lot of accidents that happened with it, and it was also like a choke point in the city for a lot of traffic, so a lot of people did not like the Rush Street Bridge, and it does not exist anymore, and it was replaced with the DuSable Michigan Avenue Bridge today. So I'm gonna say that. It might be totally wrong, but you know, there you go. That's my opinion on a fact, I guess. I don't know. Sure.
Give it up for This is the part where I'll ask you for money. Seriously though, if you guys had a great time tonight, if you learned something interesting, you know, it's always a pleasure to be able to host these series and invite speakers to speak on stuff that never gets talked about. It makes question and answer difficult sometimes, but I mean, it's really, really exciting. We've had 2 lectures in a row now where people are presenting things that these are topics they have gleaned from just spending a lot of time in archives. So it's always really exciting when we get a talk that has just been so thoroughly researched, and it's just not something I've ever heard about. So thanks again to Leyla. But yeah, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. If you can afford to donate, we always appreciate it. ChicagoForChicagoans.org/donate. We have a cash bucket in the back. Everyone always asks which takes the least amount of fees out of my donation. The answer is cash. Also, donor box. We prefer donor box. They absorb fees for us, which is really nice. And thank you guys. We hope to see you back. Next week, we're talking about demolition in Chicago, another very upbeat topic. I will be giving that presentation, and it's a really exciting one. It's kind of a nebulous topic that touches on a lot of things, but we'll talk about why there's so many dang vacant lots in Chicago. And then we have many, many more great lectures coming up, so check them out. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
This was a cozy one.
Yeah.
Your name again?
Leyla.
Leyla. Thank you.
So he is an arrest warrant.
Oh.